Good evening and warm welcome to all the participants. I take pleasure in welcoming you to the 174th WiseViews Leadership Conversation, and this is with Miss Pallavi Madhok. And actually, ma'am has already joined us, so I request all of you to join me in welcoming ma'am to this conversation. Good evening, ma'am, and welcome to you. I am thankful to you that you have spared some time for us this evening, and we are looking forward to having a wonderful conversation with you. Thank you so much. I'll do a brief introduction, ma'am, and then I hand it over back to you for your opening remarks. I'll share my screen. These are Wise Views Leadership Conversations, which we host every Friday, but we make some deviations depending on the availability of the speaker and the convenience. So this is being held on a Saturday, one of the rare occasions. And thank you very much, ma'am, for giving us this time. So the topic is women's financial inclusion, need, business case, and solutions. This introduction and also the opening remarks will be for the first 25 minutes, followed by a Q&A, which is for about 40 minutes approximately. And this Q&A will be in two clusters. The first cluster will be taken up by Professor Prasad, and I'll come back for the second cluster. I take pleasure in introducing Ms. Pallavi T. Madhok, Vice President, Advisory Services, South Asia, Women's World Banking. This is a very interesting profile. She is the lead for advisory solutions in India. She works with partner institutions. She works with partner institutions to develop innovative products and solutions that unlock value for both their women customers and their stakeholders. Her prior experience has been in product management and management consulting. Ms. Pallavi also holds the Arya Chanakya Chair for Economics and Finance at MIT ADT University, Pune, for her contribution to financial inclusion. Some of the popular works of Ms. Pallavi are listed below. Fintech Ki Baat Dil Se Podcast 2024, Using Female Inclusion Tactics, Economic Times 2024, Small Savings, Big Impact, Building Low-Income Women's Financial Resilience will have wider economic benefits for everyone. COVID-19 may just be the unintended booster shot for financial inclusion needed. This New York organization is empowering low-income women in India through financial inclusion. All these are thought leadership articles or commentaries written by Madam. The Great Indian Women Banking Challenge, will banks come forward and take it up now? So these are some of the works, and she's graduated in economics from Delhi University and holds an MBA from the prestigious IIM Bangalore. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thanks for agreeing to speak with us this evening. Once again, on behalf of everyone, I thank you for sparing your time. I will also take one more moment to introduce my esteemed colleague, Dr. Prasad. Dr. Prasad is a Senior Director of Academic Wing, ICFAI Group. He is the Professor and Course Mentor for ICFAI Online MBA program that we are running. And he brings to the table a rich experience of 3 decades as an entrepreneur, as a corporate professional, and now as an academic at ICFAI. He holds BTech from IIT Bombay and PGDM from IIM Kolkata. He published several articles, edited various books, and presented papers in India and abroad. Thank you, Professor Prasad, for joining, and welcome to you as well. We will spare all the time for ma'am to open her talk. Ma'am, your screen sharing will be available. I request you to make your presentation, and after that, we'll take it up. A large number of people have joined today, and they come from all walks of life, from academics, from social work as well. I welcome all of them, and we all look forward to having a wonderful conversation with you. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Mr. Rao, and good afternoon, everyone, and nice to meet you, Dr. Prasad. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. As you introduced me today, my topic is on the women's market, specifically the business case for financial inclusion. And I've used these words because financial inclusion most often is considered a development initiative, which it is, and I'll talk to you a little bit about it. But I thought since a lot of the audience has a keen business sense, it's very important also to underscore the business case in financial inclusion and why it's so important to serve the women customer as a viable market. So let me jump straight to it. Just before that, a little bit about Women's World Banking. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the organization that I work for. We are a not-for-profit organization. It's a New York-based organization. Our focus is very much on improving the financial security and prosperity of 100 million women around the world. And we do this in a couple of ways. One is that we provide advisory services. I lead that for South Asia, where we work with microfinance institutions, fintechs, banks, insurance companies to help them develop products for women customers. We also do research. We also advocate solutions to policymakers, to governments, and we also have an investment arm that does direct investments in organizations that develop products for low-income women. We've been doing this now for over 45 years. We are present in South Asia, Southeast Asia, and Africa. And we are serving over 70 partners who are our network partners around the world. So why is there an organization focused on financial inclusion at all, and that too women's financial? This is just, specific. That must be the first question that came to mind when Mr. Rao had shared the topic with you. And the reality is, it is a big problem. There are a little less than 1 billion women around the world who are currently unserved and underserved by the formal financial sector. And when we mean unserved or underserved, it means they do not have access to financial and technological tools in their names, and they're not comfortable, even if they have an account, they're not comfortable using them. And therefore, this limits their potential. Women, financial inclusion really matters because women who are financially included, there are three ways that they can contribute, or the three ways that financial inclusion really matters. One, it impacts the economic growth of the country and, of course, the world. When women are given tools to participate equally along with men, they contribute to economic growth. In fact, the latest McKinsey study had identified that if women participated equally, $12 trillion could be added to the global GDP by 2025. But also, it's not just sheer growth, it's also inclusive growth because you have a wider percentage of society that's contributing. So that's one. And as an economist, this clearly resonates with me. But the second thing is that investing in women actually has a significant, undeniable impacts to society at large. What happens is that when women earn income, and they, on average, 90% of their income is plowed back into productive expenses or invest expenses for their families. So not only does this lead to economic progress, it improves education outcomes for children in homes where women contribute fairly, or improves health outcomes. And so when women thrive, actually the entire community, village, society thrives. And which is why you'll notice that a lot of our recent government schemes are very much focused on women because they recognize the first two. So that's on the policy and social impact side. But there is just a commercial side, which also makes tremendous sense because women are an addressable market for financial service providers or FSPs. They're a large market. They have the ability to pay, and there is a strong business case. And I hope, as an outcome of today's conversation, if there is one thing that you can, remember, or I can leave behind, is that serving the women's market is a strong business case. Let me tell you a little bit about the women's market in India now. So, let's focus on India because we are all here. So there are around 510 million adult women in India. And labor force participation, we know that 42% are employed. Of course, when we speak of financial inclusion, it's of the entire 510 million. It's not just of the employed. And many of you may know that Government of India has a very successful scheme called the Jan Dhan Yojana, which around 8 to 10 years ago was launched, which significantly increased access to banking to a large percentage of low income people in India, including women. And as you can see the numbers, women today, 77% of women today now have access to a bank account. So this is a huge systemic change that has happened in India in less than a decade. As you can see, between 2011 to 2021, there's a significant change. Now, at the back of the significant change, there is a huge market that is now open and available for financial service providers because all of them have a bank account or a KYC complete bank account. So this should mean that women should be participating equally in financial services. But the answer is not that clear. The truth is that when we speak to women and we do a lot of customer research, Women actually save. In fact, they are the drivers of savings in India. You would know that in your own households, in your own homes, it's the women who are saving, right? But they don't necessarily save in the bank account. So they save at home, they save in that gullak or the piggy bank, or, they have that rice dabba at home and they will put some money and there'll be some amount of money. So it's very informal in nature. And while they're committed savers, they're not saving in the formal institutions. And this limits them. Even when they have a bank account, not all of them have active bank accounts, not all of them are saving. And here are some of the statistics. Not all of them are using digital payments, which is very limiting because the effort to do a non-digital payment is much higher, and that limits you, especially if you're a business owner or if you need to make payments, remittances across cities, so on and so forth. And the gap is significant between men and women across various financial products. So what happens is that and this is a very important metric called financial resilience. And that's something that ultimately we track. So if you ask anybody, can you come up with emergency funds in 30 days? Only 5% of women are able to come up with the funds, either through savings or through borrowings or through any other process, which makes them financially vulnerable. So before I come to that, there are gender gaps, and the gender gaps actually reveal not a gap as much as an opportunity, because I'm sure, as all of you business or aspiring business people, if you look at these numbers, what you'll note is that there is a large market. They want to save, they are saving, but they're not saving in a formal financial institution. So as a bank, I should actually be catering to them and trying to sell a variety of products because they are probably willing. The truth is that actually women are a huge, and you're very right, the women are a huge and profitable customer base for financial service providers. And there is a large business case for investing in women. And I'd like to talk about this in greater detail. One is, of course, the stronger savings behavior, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about that because savings actually drives the entire banking system. Women are also good borrowers, and women are great customers. Once onboarded, actually, women the stickiness of women in the financial service product is higher. They have many more products. They hold many more products in an institution vis-a-vis men who might be holding multiple accounts in multiple institutions. So for an institution, the woman customer is always more profitable. And we work with a lot of institutions, and I'm not saying this lightly. And when we work with these institutions, we actually calculate what is called a customer lifetime value. And we calculate that for men and we calculate that for women. And across almost every institution I've worked for, when you segment the market and you look at the data of women vis-a-vis men in a portfolio, the customer lifetime value of a woman is almost always higher for a bank than her male counterpart. Now, why is that so? One, of course, I had touched upon savings. So yes, women hold more money. They have a stronger savings behavior. They did not hold more money, but it's a stronger savings behavior. So whatever they can save, they then start putting it aside. And if they have an access to a bank account, increasingly we are seeing with access, their ability to save in the bank account is also increasing if things align. And I'll talk about what those things are. So for those who save, of course, the way women save is slightly different. They save around, this is low income women. They save, and so when I refer to women, I'm almost always referring not to women like me or you, but to low income women in urban, semi-urban and rural India. And when these low income women save, they like to save in liquid assets. So maybe a bank or SHE group savings, or informally at cash at home. And they save around 5,000 rupees, which is a good amount for a financial institution per year. And the reasons they save for typically would be, like I had mentioned, for the children's future, health of the family, and financial security. Now, this would be a surprise for you when you look into your own homes. The second opportunity is that there are a lot of women businesses, micro, nano businesses that exist in India. And this is a growing segment. And it is largely completely unaddressed by formal financial services. These micro businesses are both in rural India and in urban India. So these would be tailoring, clothing stores, kirana stores, and dukans. The graph on the right-hand side will show you. And these are small one-person businesses that are run. But they may be small, they may be informal, but they contribute a substantial part of the family incomes come from women-owned businesses. And these businesses are mature in terms of vintage. They are equally based out of home and shop. And women run these businesses and are also a very good customer base for financial service providers. Now, women are also good borrowers. So these same MSME women that I was talking about, which is a growing market, actually, when the market was divided, and this is a very famous report you should get your hands on by IFC, which came out, I think, in 2011, which showed statistics. They tracked women businesses and men businesses. And women actually are just, more risk aware. They are careful in when they take a loan, they're careful in paying back loans. So the NPAs of women accounts are almost always less than the NPA, which is, when an account doesn't pay back a loan. It's almost less, almost always less than for a man. So, and their businesses are more profitable. So the little ball on the right, on the left hand side, the bigger ball on the right hand side is of women owned enterprises, which have a 35% profit margin, but only a 4% NPA, compared to a male run business, which has much higher NPS, 7% NPS, and a much less profit margin. And so there is this huge credit gap, and the gap, and if you look at the data, banks should want more women to want to lend to more women enterprises because they're just more profitable. So they're better borrowers. But, and there's one more thing before I leave, I wanted to also tell you that they are also great brand ambassadors to financial service providers. So when a woman takes a product and she likes it, it takes women more time to adopt a product. She asks more questions. But when she adopts a product, she is satisfied. Apart from being loyal, she is almost always a brand ambassador. So if you notice, in women in villages or in rural semi-urban India come to banks in groups, because they manage to convince their whole village or their whole group, or even just the SHG lending or the MFI lending is very community based, because women are great brand ambassadors in their communities. And that's something a lot of financial service providers have understood today. So if financial service providers know that women are more profitable, you would want to give them a loan, because the likelihood of getting that loan back is higher. They will save more. So if you open their account, you'll probably have more CASA, and they're loyal customers. Then why are financial service providers not serving this market, right? I mean, they should be. And there are a couple of reasons why. And the primary reason is that when banks are not looking at their data and identifying women market as a base at all, and once they do that, they then can start designing their products and solutions, keeping the woman persona in mind. So the woman persona, designing for a woman, is something very new in the financial services market. Mostly, even when fintechs launch, they keep a persona in mind. And that persona is almost always the first adopter, not the middle adopter or the late adopter, right? Because you need to make quick money. And that first adopter in their mind is always a male, urban male Indian, and not a rural or a semi-urban female or an MSME female Indian. And therefore, a lot of systems in banks are not designed for women. So let me give you some examples. Let me take on sales and marketing. It is difficult to reach women through standard sales channels that banks have. And because women are not always available in public spaces, women have a lot of mobility challenges. They don't use the public media that men have access to. And 10, 15 years ago, banks were struggling on how do I reach this customer base? And by the way, they still struggle. When banks actually launched the BC network, which was the Banking Correspondent Network, they suddenly realized that they were able to reach more women, because these BC agents were closer to homes than branches, and women struggled to travel to branches. Women are also caregivers, so they do multiple things. And so for a woman to leave a home and come to a branch is very different compared to a man who, it's easy for him to be mobile and step out. So when the BCs came in, they were closer to home. Now the entire banking system is talking about something called BC Sakhis, where these BCs actually can go to your homes. These women Sakhis, they have a mobile app and can actually reach your homes in rural India. And why? Because it takes an average woman 25 minutes to even walk to her BC point. And BC Sakhis can operate in a Gram Panchayat. So identifying different sales channels on its own, different sales channels work for women. A mainstream branch does not work for women. Another example I wanted to give you is in digital payments, where we were working with a leading digital payment platform aggregator, who aggregate women merchants to on their platforms like a GPay or a PhonePe or a MobiKwik. And we were trying to solve how we can reach and target more women merchants. But this platform was very confident. They were an all India platform and they said, listen, we are in all PIN codes in India. So it's not possible that we've left any women behind. But we are working with women merchants who have no access to these products. And then they realized it's because their sales channel mainly covers the main roads, the high streets. But women's businesses are not always on main roads and high streets. Like I showed you that graph, a lot of women operate businesses from their homes. So the sales method of reaching women, also has to change. So these are two examples. On the marketing side, even if your product is really good or your channel is relevant, a lot of times financial services don't actively welcome women. I'll give you two examples. I worked with a public sector bank, Bank of Baroda. This report is out in the market, where we designed a solution called Jandan Plus. Now, Jandan account to tha, that Jandan account was there, and the BCs are also there now. So why are women not using their Jandan account? That was a problem we were solving. And what we realized through our research was that the banks seemed very unfamiliar and very unwelcoming to women. So we designed a whole campaign to welcome women. We called it a Jandan Plus, which was small savings of 500 that you need to save every month. And we told her, this is for women, and after you save, we'll reward you. So the women couldn't believe, because in their minds, they thought that banks are only for other people or for large amounts, because I only have 500 rupees to deposit. But when the bank actively welcomed women and their small savings, the whole perception changed in the women market. Another example, we were working with Lending Cart, which is a digital lender, and we designed a campaign, a digital campaign to welcome women MSMEs, because women MSMEs didn't know that they could get a loan digitally. And what we promised them was bias-free loans, that it doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman, you'll get a loan. We gave them a financial health report and some interest discounts to sweeten it. And in a way, even if today you go to the Lending Cart webpage, you will see a completely different section welcoming women, business women. So these are a couple of examples on sales and marketing and how that needs to be different. But even product sometimes need to be tweaked. Now, you would think a loan is a loan or an account is an account, but, or a financial payment is a payment. But what you realize is that some women have different needs, and that's why they're not onboarding. And that's why we have this problem of financial exclusion. I'll give you two examples. We were working on a project with NPCI, and this report is also out in public, where we did research on why women who have smartphones and bank accounts are not using UPI to do transfers. And they're using these smartphones for YouTube and WhatsApp, etc. But why are they not doing payments? And we realized after doing researches that women were very wary of linking their savings account to a UPI app, because they were worried, rightly so, that if I link my hard-earned savings, which are private, and with great difficulty I've saved it, to a UPI account, all my money could be washed out if there was a fraudulent activity. So most women are unwilling to link their savings account to their UPI. Therefore, NPCI said, we're coming up with a prepaid wallet, PPI. And so let's test that in the market. And we did that with Spice Pay, which is a leading financial service provider, where we went to women with a prepaid wallet and we positioned it as a safe way of using UPI. And that helped women address a lot of their fears on UPI. Another example is a lending product where you can change a product. It's a large NBFC, Annapurna, which provides loans for both MFI and MSME segments. Here also, they were giving very high ticket loans, 5 lakh loans. And and collateral, you needed to give your property documents to get that loan. But what women wanted was a smaller loan, and they wanted collateral free loan. They didn't want a large loan. So we designed a product which was smaller, like around 1 lakh loan, collateral free. And that's something that's finally gone live in the market. It's, as we speak, being piloted, and it's showing great results. So you need to sometimes tweak your product design for a different market, especially the women's markets. Women do have different needs. And the need here is that not too many women have collateral on their name in general, globally and in India. And finally, operations. So sometimes what happens is that in banking processes, biases creep in decision making, specifically gender biases. And processes, for example, they might ask, a woman to give a co-applicant as a husband in certain loans, but they will not ask the husband to give his wife as a co-applicant, right? So these are gender biases that creep in the decision making. And what we do is that we then look at, data, and we try, which is male data, women's data, and we go through the whole process to understand, is there any bias in the system? And many of these biases are unintentional. You don't realize it. In your decision making, a branch manager may say, I'm not sure she knows her business क्योंकि वो कुछ बोल नहीं रही है. She's not saying anything because she's not comfortable talking to the branch manager. So probably she's not running her business and I'm not going to give her a loan. But actually she's running her entire business. So these are some of the biases that creep in the lending system, which we need to be aware of as financial service providers. So if we are aware that products need to be tweaked, marketing and sales can be changed, and operations can be biased against women, we will understand how we can change these so that we can include women in a viable manner in the financial system. And the way we do this is called women-centered design, which is basically designing keeping the woman persona in mind. So if you understand her needs, you research a little bit about her, you look at the data in your platform. If you're running a business, see the men's needs and the women, how they're transacting, how they're behaving, and understand her challenges and design for her. But while you're doing that, you also have to design for the business because it has to be viable. It has to make business sense. It can't be just it's not just to drive impact, but it's also to make money. So keeping these two in mind, financial service providers can design products and solutions to serve the women market segment. There are four things I wanted to leave you with, and I'm happy to open for questions. How should a financial service provider do this? So there are four easy steps. One is you need to segment your customers because there is a lot of value to be unearthed across segments. And the segment that we nudge banks and financial service providers to unearth is the women market segment because it's huge and untapped today. Then analyze gender disaggregated data, which is something almost all financial service providers do not do. So they will have a field called female and male, but they never look at the data in a gender disaggregated manner. And if you do, you will realize that women operate very differently from men. They have different challenges, they have different needs. Third, once you've understood what their needs are for your segment, then, and you've identified opportunities, then you can go ahead and design solutions, pilot solutions, and roll out solutions that are specific to serve the women market. Please remember that when you design for women in mind, actually you're not designing only for women, you are designing for everyone because you're designing for the bottom of the pyramid, the challenges, right? Because women are completely underserved today. And you will actually grow the pie of even your male customers. So in every project I've worked, any new design for women helps even all underserved segments. It benefits all underserved segments. So keeping that in mind, I'm going to close my slide and I'd love to open for questions.
Amazing, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation in terms of making a compelling pitch on why women market segment is a business case and it's not just a social coherence activity or a compassionate statement or a feel-good factor, but it is a business case for us to look at.
Correct.
And that makes all the difference in terms of the way we look at it and the way we actually draw action points from what you have mentioned. This is so important, and I'm very happy that you have touched upon this very important topic this evening. Ma'am, I think the entire landscape has been very carefully, sharply presented in terms of what we need to understand about women. A lot of institutions, financial institutions, do not look at this data in the manner that you have looked at or you are advocating us to look at, in the sense that it begins with empathy. That
Yes.
no, unless and until you identify that there is a case, or you start with a hunch that there is a case, or I understand the problem that is happening at the grassroots level, all these sections of women who are not represented, who are underserved and unserved, they're a huge segment. in terms of size, number one. Number two, there are no methods, there are no techniques, and there are no products to actually make them inclusive. So with empathy, one has, looked into data and drawn insights and then created products and then included them. And then the growth is taking place in the way you have projected and presented. It's a wonderful end-to-end presentation that you have given, put in front of us. Thank you so much, ma'am. I think our own, to a large extent, our own biases in looking at the data. When we have large amounts of data lying in front of us, any business for that matter, we don't actually get into those pockets where we don't have a hunch that there is going to be a market lying untapped. So that's actually by us. I think it is hugely a big shift, a paradigm kind of shift that is called for in looking at the data in the manner that you are recommending to segment and research and study the customer, and then the solutions flow. So it's a fantastic, very, very interesting thing. I'm sure we also have very interesting questions to request your responses for throughout this session, the next 40 minutes. But ma'am, there are governments which are talking about these inclusive activities, their policies, their not just the financial inclusion for everyone, but the financial inclusion for women specific policies.
Yes.
Those schemes are also there. I'm sure we will talk about all that and then bring it into perspective and see where are still the gaps. For example, if women are included, they are very good brand ambassadors, as you mentioned, apart from being loyal customers. And if they are saving more, then they are going to have outcomes, better outcomes on health and education. Now, all these things will have to fructify. Over the last 10 years, are the indicators pointing towards these expected benefits, expected outcomes is something which we also have to look at.
Correct.
Because the beginning of the presentation, the data says that women are having more accounts, more bank accounts, are a little more inclusive than what they were 10 years before. And therefore, it can be tied up to other kinds of outcomes and see whether the picture is complete or not, or what gaps we have and how do we address those things. All set, ma'am. Thank you so much. I once again welcome all the participants who have joined this evening. And I request Professor Prasad to start his thought-provoking opening session. Over to you, Professor Prasad.
Thank you, Professor Rao. Thank you, ma'am. Good evening. I think, this session could not have come at a better time. I was reading about Thomas Piketty, who's come to the Delhi School of Economics yesterday, and he was saying that there is a growing disparity and India is second after South Africa. And I'm sure for what you have connected with 50% of the population, if you want to do something about it, you can't ignore women, and it's a huge segment. This is one immediate trigger. Then the other is, very recently, that is, I think last week, we have a center of excellence at the deemed university in Hyderabad, our AA plus NAC. And they had, the topic of that was financial inclusion. And there are a number of speakers from banks and industry who came. And so it's a hot topic as far as our institution is also concerned. And the third point was, I think about 2 or 3 webinars back, we had Mr. Tamal Bandyopadhyay, who spoke about financial inclusion. And we had some questions raised. One of the questions is, how are we going to solve this problem? And I think from what you have presented, I see a completely different perspective. I see a solution in what you are talking about. And there seems to be a lot of, there's a ray of hope at the end of the tunnel. And I think it's a big opening to the tunnel, a lot of light there. And so we are very encouraged to get into this situation. First up, ma'am, first question is, this is a mission-oriented kind of work as well, though there is a business case in it. A lot of people have not been looking at it closely. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had all these things coming out. So how did you get to where you are now?
Okay, that's an interesting question. So I graduated from IIM Bangalore. I was a consultant for many years, and I then moved into retail banking. And frankly, I was working with Citibank, and there was nothing inclusive in what we were doing. As you know, a lot of the global banks are very, urban centric in their products and services. But after I left Citibank, and I wanted to do something in the impact space because I felt, that need to contribute to society. So I definitely had that. I actually didn't go into gender work immediately. I actually went into the education field. And then I understand, and I really wanted to work in a larger impact space. Like for me, the education work was also very limited. And gender, in a way, is cross-cuts across all initiatives. Like there is a gender component in every initiative social initiative in India. And I realized over time that women, because they're the heart of families, any change that you want to bring, societal change, economic change, cultural change, has a gender element. You cannot do away with it. And that's how I said, if I really want to impact at scale, you have to include gender. And by the way, almost all policies or almost all governments in India have also understood this. Anything, whether it's IT or it's MSME or it is whatever ministry you take will have a gender aspect in it. And that's the beauty of working in the gender field. It truly can impact many people at once.
Thank you, ma'am. I wish more people with such backgrounds came in and lent their bandwidth to solving this problem or challenge ahead of us. In your website, there is a mention that women-led small business make up about 20% of the market, and that they are too big for MFIs and
Yes.
too small for banks. You did mention about it. Now, what sort of you're in a space where you're not directly a bank or an MFI, you're trying to provide
No.
solutions. So, what sort of how do you engineer this
Yeah.
through your organization?
Right. So we are a grant-based organization. So, and we also do fee-for-service work. But what it means is that our funding comes from grants that are made available. And we then work with organizations who have a problem. So firstly, they need to have a problem. And mostly we work with financial service organizations, but it could be a variety. Like we would work with an insurance company or a fintech or a bank or an MFI, NBFC, or even apex bodies. So a lot of work I have done is with NPCI or a SIDBI or NABARD or policymakers, where they have a very strong need to, or a business case or a policy which has a gender angle in it. And that's when we try to understand, what is their objective and why are they not able to achieve this objective? And how can gender specific or gender centric, women centric designs help them achieve their objectives? So it could be an objective of growing a loan scheme. It could be an objective of increasing insurance penetration. It could be an objective of increasing saving or CASA. And how can a women-centered solution then help them achieve their business objective? And that's when we say, we believe and we come because we've worked for over 45 years across many countries around the world. We do have a point of view and we believe that, having a women-centered design approach helps you unearth this market, which is an important market for financial services. And with that experience, we come and we understand their unique customer needs, their context, because every organization has different products, different processes. And then we collaborate to design a solution. So the women-centered design process is actually a very iterative process, Dr. Prasad. It's fascinating. So, you come up with something, but you're very open to change it. And you're very open to actually, you're looking for failures. Because if everything was successful, then that's not the real world. So then you pilot it in the field, you test it, and then you look for what's working, what's not working. And then you improve it. Then you roll it out, and then you improve it further. So, and because it's a problem that takes time to solve, you need a larger window to solve difficult problems. So you're not looking for results in 3 months, but it's also very important to give early wins to, profit-making organizations. But eventually the results take time and it takes some 12 to 18 months to see the final results. So we work with organizations through this entire process.
Thank you, ma'am. You have highlighted two aspects. One is the need for product design, and the other is gender bias. Now, again, through your website, there is a fintech organization you mentioned called Kalaifofin.
Kaleidofin, yeah.
Kaleidofin. So 1.3 million customers is what is mentioned there. Now, when you look at what you're talking about, women-centered design, can you help us understand a bit more using would you use this fintech or any other similar fintech to tell us what exactly have you done there so
Yeah.
that we know that, yes.
Yeah. So I can give you an example of Lending Cart, which is a fintech in the lending space, where, or I can give you an example actually of Spice Pay, because that's a report that's out on the a recent report that's out with NPCI, where, like I was mentioning to you, women are cautious. They don't want to link their savings account to their UPI, even though they have a smartphone and an account. And we wanted to understand how we can get more women digitally enabled. And this is a project with NPCI, and SpicePay is an NPCI partner. And SpicePay is a last mile distributor, and they wanted to launch a UPI-based prepaid wallet, which is a digital wallet. So we said, firstly, we did a lot of research to understand what are the fears women have of linking their UPI account. And then we tested this wallet conceptually to understand, can this wallet help address these fears? Because, the way the wallet operates you can load it one time and then you can use it. So it's not actively linked to your account. You can load 2,000 rupees and then you can use it small payments, 500, 100, 500. So it's separate from your savings account. So women find it safe to use on their smartphones. And then after we did the research and all, and we designed the solution, and then we know that the platform to communicate to women was safety, but that's not good enough. The channel that we had to use had to be a combination of physical, we call it phygital. So we used the SpicePay agent points. We did this pilot in Mathura, where we onboarded women in the community manually, and we gave them this prepaid wallet, and we helped them do transaction 1, 2, and 3. So you have to design incentives for the sales channel also for that customer, because we know that just onboarding her is not good enough. She needs to build confidence. So then after you build the confidence, what we realize is within a week, you can let her go. But that 1 week window is very important, because she can drop off also in that 1 week window if she's not given, like, I'm not understanding, which is samajh mein nahi aa raha hai, ye kahan, the app and all interface. So if you support her for that 1 week, then she's good to go, which the physical channel was able to do, which a purely digital channel could not do. So it was a combination of the SpicePay physical channel with the product and the positioning that we then tested in the market. So this is a women-centered design, an example of women-centered design.
Excellent. I think after hearing about how MFIs and banks look at this issue, this looks like a very welcome change and a very positive use of management technology into problem solving. Ma'am, another question I had is, and I think, this again in your website, you mentioned about how lending cards credit scoring model does not differentiate between men and women.
Yes.
And this, data, the data also has got a gender bias, the way we collect data. And that women may not be able to give all the fields which are required in even a simple input sheet. So can you throw some more light on such issues, because analytics comes out of this as well?
Yes. So that because we assume that algorithms are bias free, because it's a whatever ML and algorithm is running at the back, but we need to be aware that algorithms are also designed by human beings firstly, and the human beings have their own biases. That's one. Point two is the algorithms collect data which has biases in them, and I'll give you examples. For example, a lot of the credit decisioning could be made, like some of it, not a lot. There's a paper that we've released on how organizations use algorithms for credit decisioning. And some organizations take the location of their mobile, like, where the woman is operating that mobile phone, and, where all she's traveling, etc., when she's running her business, to help them decide how good is the business is one of the factors. And algorithms take 1,000 data points to decide. So this is one of the 1,000. But women businesses are run out of their homes. They don't travel too much. So if the algorithm is going to add more points because you are covering a wider distance and therefore your business is doing well, that is going to work against a woman, not for the woman businesses. So it's in a way it's gender biased, because women don't operate that way. And so one is the data can also be biased. The person designing the algorithm can be also biased. The third thing is the sheer data, because algorithms work on data. So the more data you feed algorithms, the more efficient they become. But if the lending organization is only getting 10% of applications as women applications and 90% of data that's coming in is men's, then the algorithm is being refined on the 90% of data. It's going to do a better job to give out more loans to men. And it's not getting enough data. So sometimes you need to balance the data artificially. So these are some of the corrective measures. Like, you need to look at the kind of data, you need to balance the data, and of course you need to look at the pure algorithm to see, has it been designed in a way where our bias has unconsciously come in. So we've actually launched a toolkit, and the toolkit's also available on our website, called, Check Your Bias Toolkit, for financial organizations to check the credit decision making with very simple checks. And then they can go into further statistical checks, which are more evolved, using large data sets to identify, am I even lending fairly? It's called fair lending. Am I not lending fairly?
Excellent, ma'am. I think we've got a more understanding on how these things can be done. Again, what I can see is something which needs, which a lot of people coming into this field can help increase the social impact of this. And I do hope that some of the audience will be able to participate in some fashion or the other. I hand it back to Professor Rao. We're at about 3:48.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor. Ma'am, there are many questions, but I take one or two, and then I also would like to open the mic for those in the audience to ask you directly once I'm done with these couple of questions. Uh, is there a perspective that you can help us with in terms of how this financial inclusion for women is addressed in other countries? Are there any case studies for us to actually go by and learn from? And how in advanced countries it is looked at? Because the issues seem to be fundamental and common, but I really don't understand beyond that. Please help me.
Yes, yes. No, thank you. I hope I can do justice to this question, Mr. Rao. I may not have enough knowledge, but what I do know is I want to say that Indian government over the years has done substantial effort in the banking system, RBI included, to increase women's inclusion in the country. And globally, it's applauded. The fact that Jan Dhan Yojana plus the UPI has been global examples of excellence that are enabling more women to be part of the formal banking system. Of course, we have a lot of work to do, like in the data I have shared. Now, maybe we have more work to do because the social norms in India are different. And therefore, we might have to work harder. That's the reality. Also, women's participation in the labor force has been significantly low. So we have a longer ladder to climb compared to other countries. So I'm not sure I should compare us to any other country. But we work with a lot of regulators around the world. And across regulations, I can tell you that Indian regulators are quite advanced in the policy making when it comes to women's financial inclusion. I think between policy and execution, there is always a gap because of the sheer infrastructure of the country, and that's where we suffer. But RBI has a policy, but it doesn't have a women's financial inclusion policy. That's something they're working on. And actually, World's Banking is looking to support them in developing a policy. So that would be a big difference if RBI could come up with a women's financial inclusion policy. Simple measures like gender disaggregated data at a policy level is not shared in India, which is a big gap, where in other countries, especially in developed countries, this is easily available. And if government could focus on one thing, it would be making gender disaggregated data available. So like for you or for me or, education institutions can do so much with that data. You take any index, RBI index, I'm sure gender is part of that index, but it's not transparently available on what the gender aspect is on the RBI Financial Inclusion Index. RBI has a digital payments index, but you don't know how women are performing different from men. So, having that disagree, then you can achieve your policy. So policy is great, but the execution suffers because of natural execution issues, but also lack of data to solve for them. So these are the two.
Very interesting, ma'am. Very interesting. Of course, there's a there's a lot of room for us to catch up and go a long way in terms of achieving the objectives of this financial inclusion. Harnessing it completely in terms of the work that one has begun. There's a long way to go. Thank you for that perspective, ma'am. The second one is we have seen that in the recent times, certain governments in India, certain state governments in India have provided schemes for enhancing mobility of women. For example,
Oh, yeah.
as simple as free bus tickets, in the sense you don't have to pay the fare of the bus ticket, and women are allowed to travel free, and therefore their
Yeah.
mobility is achieved. And once their mobility is achieved, they'll be able to go, in this case, for example, to a bank or to a place of business. Even if it is nearby, say, a couple of kilometers from their home,
Correct.
they'll be able to make that. I think I'm not taking sides in terms of a political affiliation or anything, but I think the fundamental assessment of the scheme and its impact. And are there studies, ma'am, to study these things as to how such schemes would have outcomes like the ones that you have mentioned earlier in terms of business, in terms of education, in terms of health, so on and so forth?
Yeah, no, I'm sure there are. I'm not a research specialist. I do have a team member who's a research specialist. So after this call, I can share those specific researches that are showing impact on mobility. But mobility is a huge one. You're completely right. It need not just be free bus tickets. It has to be safe public transport. And that's more important than free. But And so women are, more comfortable traveling in public transport. But mobility, and I don't want to leave it to the government only. There's a lovely project that I'm doing with Urban Company, which is, provides gig working services, and they have 18,000 women gig workers who do salon services in urban India. And what we're trying to do for them is come up with a two-wheeler finance service where we, get these women two-wheelers through loans. In a way, and if they don't know how to drive, even get them to learn to drive, because just imagine they can grow their income, just do one job more in a day or two more jobs in a day, reduce the cost of auto travel if they get a two-wheeler bike. So mobility can even be solved by private companies. It's
Yeah.
not just government of India's problem. And yeah, and it can go a long way in increasing income opportunities for women.
Excellent. Excellent, ma'am. Before I open the mic for a couple of participants who have raised their hands, I'm trying to actually think loud in terms of the fact that we have a Center for Women Development in our institute in Hyderabad, and we also have ICFAI School of Social Sciences. Jointly and independently, these two bodies look at some of the developmental studies. One is exclusively focused on women, other one is focused in general. And the intersection of these two would be extremely relevant to this discussion. If there are any suggestions for an institution like ours to focus on, kindly give us a couple of suggestions so that we can orient our efforts in terms of actualizing some of these targets and objectives.
You want me to give you suggestions now?
Yeah, you can give later. That's fine,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
you
yeah.
can send an email to us and we can
Yes,
work
yes,
together, ma'am. It is an
yes.
invitation and a request that there is a huge common ground between some of the centers of excellence that we run
Got
and
it.
the kind of work that you uphold. I think we should
Right.
work together. I'll
Perfect.
request and I'll try and forge the connects
Perfect. Happy to help.
subsequently. Yeah, yeah.
Perfect.
Now I'll open the mic for a couple of questions from the audience. Sneha ji,
Hi, am I
please
audible?
go ahead. Yes, you are.
Yeah, hi. Hi, thank you so much, Pallavi. It was a really, really good discussion. So, we run this wealth management firm for women, and what we're doing is we have a lot of H&I clients, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to also get lower income women because they like to do a lot of daily SIPs, is what we have understood. So, we're also trying to open it to them. So, we have sub brokers in these areas where they go and translate the literature in regional language, let's say in Delhi, in Hindi. So they speak to them and they tell them that this is how you can do the SIP, because they, and again, like you said, speaking to women, women brokers are much better. Like you said, we worked with a spa and they were able to do like this, mobilize a lot of other women. One big challenge we face is the KYC integration because their emails are not added. And again, like you pointed out, mobility is an issue. So they're scared of even going and I don't want to get it added to my Aadhaar, or so that is one challenge that we face a lot, that there's a huge drop off the moment we tell them to, ki you have to get your email added to the KYC. So that I just wanted to quickly discuss on, if you have any insights on
Yeah.
what's happening in KYC simplification, and how we can also look at some studies on, what we can do. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think government is trying to add a lot of technology to KYC also with video KYC. I don't know if you've tried that, but KYC remains an issue. I'm not saying video KYC will solve for everything, because I mean, when we also did our research on video KYC, women didn't want to share their videos with some stranger sitting in some call center. Okay, so that is a challenge with the video KYC. But having said that, what almost always works, Sneha, for us in our projects when we onboard women is using trusted channels. And so local trusted channels, because they have fears, because they don't know what's going to happen to all this, and rightly so. They should, they need to know what's happening to all this data that organizations are collecting about them, right? Because there's so much fraud happening around. And one of the biggest challenges, biggest fears of governments is that the more I digitize, the fraudsters are actually increasing substantially more than my digitization. So that's only, if the more low income women you have on these digital platforms, they are more vulnerable to digital fraud. So using trusted channels is critical. So yeah, if you're using a spa which as an agent who is trusted in the local community, that might be much more useful, though it might be a little more expensive because your upfront cost might be higher, and that is the truth. So then the woman is more likely to stay, there is less drop off, and she will be stickier and she will transact more. So you will have to see the whole customer lifetime value, but using high trusted in-person channels ends up being more expensive than digital only. But I think it's a longer term investment, and this is what we've seen.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Great, ma'am. Thank you for your response. I'll request Sunita ji to ask a question, please.
Thank you, sir. And thank you so much, ma'am, for the wonderful session. I am doing research in women financial inclusion. So I have been speaking and interviewing a lot of vegetable vendors, farmers, then also house help, and so on and so forth. Okay. And some of the inputs that I have got from them and which I thought you would be able to give me some suggestions on. One is that when we come to digital financial inclusion for women, especially if we see in India, it is completely skewed towards mobile banking. Okay. And mobile banking per se requires a smartphone, which what I understood when I spoke to all these women is that most of them don't own a smartphone. The smartphone is either owned by the husband or the other male family member. So the kind of, transaction that they have to do, the transaction is basically for the sake of the other people in the house. So that's one challenge which they are facing in being totally independent. See, when I talk about financial inclusion, I'm also looking at financial independence of the women. And
Correct.
That's where the question is coming.
Correct.
That's one challenge which I have noticed, ma'am.
Yeah.
Then yet another challenge is that even if they have access to the smartphone and they do a kind of, a bank transaction, they're totally unaware of, the kind of transactions that they can do beyond opening a bank account, beyond probably going to a bank and taking some of those, bank schemes that they want. Beyond that, they are not able to understand that financial inclusion could be much more than that. Like, for example, none of them have invested money beside in a bank account. Okay, they are not looking at any investment options. Insurance is still a far cry, ma'am. Though though there are efforts from the other side, from the supply side. So I think these are two areas that are there. So if you can throw some light upon what kind of initiatives you think we should take it.
No, you're very right. And this is the situation in the market. So on the first one, access to smartphone is substantially changing that gap, between. And so really there's nothing you can, to be independently operating, she does need a smartphone, or she can go to the nearest BC channel, because that is through biometric, right?
Yes.
And that is actually her best option if she doesn't have a smartphone, because she makes independent decisions. But of course, going to a BC point, it's not as easy as a smartphone access. So her independence increases further, for sure, with digital access. There's no doubt about it, but we'll have to wait for that because there is a digital divide. Now for women you very rightly said, even women who have smartphones are not using. So it's not only about access of phones. Digital, not only digital, but literacy, financial literacy is a big problem. And it is the responsibility of banks and the financial institutions to increase information and awareness. And the reason it has not been so much is because there's been lack of focus on this segment, very honestly. As now we are seeing banks and financial institutions increasingly focus more on financial literacy. We will see change, especially in private sector. So it's, we always rely on the public sector banks, but now we are seeing an increase in the private fintechs also serving this segment. So, education like yours, like the lady before me, Sneha, was mentioning. So educating women on basic financial products is critical. And we will see that change, hopefully. Or insurance in particular, government, for example, has come up with a state insurance plan.
Yes.
Where, hopefully in the next 10 years, we will again see substantial information or awareness going out. By the way, there's a report that we've released on Jan Suraksha. In 10 years, the same Jandan had that Jan Suraksha component, right? Through the BC channel. It takes time, but in 10 years, there is a broad scale awareness of Bima Hoti Kya Hai in rural India. Before that, that was not there, right? So it took 10 years for them to build that awareness. Do they now have an awareness how to claim insurance, or how to even, if there is a problem, how to go through? No, I don't think so. So that might take another 2-3 years. But so it is a process, and the banking system has to invest in it. You're totally right.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for this very patient response. We have a question from a male member of the audience. We want to make
Yes,
that.
of course.
Bharat Bhushan. Bharat Bhushan ji, please go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you so much, sir. Ma'am, my question is related to the regulatory authorities that in India, regulatory authorities are going to play their role effectively in educating and increasing financial literacy among women as compared to some of the advanced countries in the world.
So your question is, are they? Is that the question? Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
Yes. In fact, financial, yes. So increasingly, we are seeing a lot of, and this is, you would have heard G20, there is a special GPFI and focus on women in G20. And, all the ministries in India are now looking at a gender aspect in their policy and schemes. And the financial sector is very much committed at a policy level and at the execution level on financial inclusion. Now, adding the gender angle is coming. We are seeing it. So, at least at a policy level, it's coming. Now it has to filter down to the banking level and the execution. See, for banks, they need to see the business case, which is why we say that policy is good and it's important, but it's very important for banks to see the business case. And once they see the business case, both policy and business can come together and there can be a big change.
Okay,
But
thank you
yes,
so
the
much.
process is happening.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Bharatji. Chitra Sharma ji also wanted to make a point. I thought we should definitely include that. Ma'am, would you like to go ahead?
Yes, very good afternoon, Sudhakar Rao, sir. First of all, thank you for bringing this session on Saturday afternoon, because last few weeks I am unable to attend your Friday session. That in the evening some household urgency work are there. And thanks, Pallavi ma'am, for taking all the aspects and explaining so beautifully, because as many questions were coming in my mind, but as the session was moving on, all my queries were being solved. So as such, I don't have any question. Just want to add my viewpoint on how we can make increase, or you can say, the participation of women in financial sector. Just I'm taking my own example that I had seen in my own house, like my mother, she is illiterate, never been to the school. But whenever I need money, she is the only one who is always standing beside me and helping me in my financial matters. It's not a matter of like 1,000 rupees. She had even helped me giving 50,000. Once she had given me 1 lakh rupees also. I was totally surprised that time. And she had told me also that you go and invest this money for your children and have some policies or like that. So that means she had some knowledge also, though she is illiterate. And yeah, and asked my father also once that why don't you open a bank account for my mom? So he said there's no need to, as I am fulfilling all her needs, and why she need to go to the bank. So this is just a one example which I am taking. That a lot of women who are housewives, they are not working women. So I think here we need to teach the women, not female, male members are to be taught here that we should bring confidence in the female partners, or maybe the her girl child or like that, that they can be very good decision maker. Though they are wife, they are quite smart, they are intelligent, and then they can take financial decisions as the male members can also take. That's all. Thank
So
you,
you're
ma'am.
very right. And I wanted to tell you that you don't need to educate the male force, because what government is doing is they're putting the direct benefit transfers only for women in accounts. So automatically now every woman has to open an account. There is a social sanction in families that I need
Okay.
to open an account for my wife, because government se paise tabhi milega if my wife has an account. So automatically they will see the value and they will open accounts for her. So that's a good policy of government of India.
Nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. I think we have touched upon very important aspects of this issue. I would like to, on behalf of everyone, thank you for introducing us to this detail and the landscape, and also that compelling business case that one needs to create and connect with various stakeholders at the same time, rather than addressing this issue at the other end of the social or compassionate grounds
Correct.
on which originally or for all the time it has been talked about. I think management experts, consultants, and techies all should come together and solve this problem. And before that, what is important is to believe in this crucible that women will contribute economically and on other parameters also to the growth of the nation, and therefore start solving these problems. One beautiful response that you gave during one of the responses that I think Professor Prasad was asking, is that getting at the solution is an iterative process. It doesn't happen just in a couple of months or so. And therefore, you should be ready to fail. You should be ready to experiment, try it out, roll out and test, modify, adopt, and again, correct the product and go back and roll it out. I think there's a huge involvement in productizing some of these solutions as well. And first of all, using the insights from data is a huge thing which we initially talked about to arrive at these solutions as well. Amazing session, eye-opening, and hugely satisfying to listen to some of these good initiatives that you and your organization is actually working at. I'm happy that we've got some time from you to address these very important issues, and we shall, as I said, continue this dialogue. I'll request you to connect with some of our researchers as well and give us some collaborative research work as well, so that together we can address a little bit of this bigger solution or bigger problem that we have at our hands. Professor Prasad, do I have the permission to wrap it up, or you want to add any points?
I think we have covered a lot of ground, and I'm sure there is, ma'am's organization has a R&D wing. There's enough scope to collaborate.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. On behalf of all of us, I once again thank you. This is a wonderful 174th WiseViews leadership conversation that we held this Saturday afternoon. And we are all quite satisfied. The insights are wonderful. We'll make a summary and share it with you before we upload it on our website. Maybe you can modify, add a little more. And after hearing from you, we'll put it up on the website. We'll also share the video that's cut out from the whole discussion. Okay, ma'am.
Thank you.
And I request you to share the PPT so that it helps us write the summary properly. Professor Ved Purishwar writes these summaries. It helps all of us to look at the video, your PPT, and then do this one.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Have a nice day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you all. Have a great weekend, and we catch up with you next week with another leader on 21st of December. Till then, go through the Women's World Banking website. It's wonderful. You find a lot of activities. It's very inspiring. Keep reading and keep motivated. Thank you.